And like right now we're having a technical issue, but he said he's gonna wait until.
Yeah. He's not showing as an attendee.
Oh, weird. Yes, I don't. I just want to make sure you can get on before you get started. When I click on the link for the special committee, is it the meeting in progress? Then maybe we're the start.
Other meetings happening today, right?
We just had.
No, but this is under open hours and mechanic.
Oh, okay,
So they just did the council meeting.
yeah,
So we just like copy and paste it.
yeah, oh yeah, is there a link from this? Where you could just send to me and I'll just send it to him so we can sign into whatever link we're on. Does that make sense? If you do want, or even your email,
I'm not even sure what I want it.
yeah, if you choose.
I'm gonna share this. Yeah, you can send it to Sherry's.
Oh, I was reading on myself. Oh, yeah.
Yes, you are.
Okay, I was gonna say, maybe the link to yours. Yeah. Oh, your phone. Oh, that's my phone. Camera's gonna do that. Come on in, we haven't started yet because there were a few technical issues, so we're gonna start with like.
Sorry to hear that. I was about to say, I'm sorry I'm late, but I didn't know, right? I'm sorry.
Do you want me anywhere in particular or just anywhere?
Anyway, particularly.
If we got to, that's why I thought it'd be here. That's the one.
Like, we can share a screen.
I can have.
One meeting, share that meetings. If not,
That's okay.
we can, I can.
Put them, yeah, I see what's happening without control with that, that's why I thought it was here.
Yeah.
Brown Sarah. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's, I think we got them inside of the lowest. One of the students.
Yes.
Who wants to do the whole back for our local city.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, maybe you want to.
No.
So, you know.
Yeah, I think it's like, if you scheme up, like our last meeting in July.
Did you face the one that you?
Oh, Sherry did, she threw it here.
That's what she did when she wrote her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or towns.
Yeah.
I don't know what. things-
Okay, here we see. That's who
they're all there.
And then the
so he did want to be there. And.
I wouldn't be surprised if rates are lower, but like. This is just.
Yeah, no, man, did a great job. It was fun to know. I know that contamination.
I'm just gonna post this new link on like Twitter so that if anyone was trying to sign in, people will want to do about it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, actually,
No, there is.
Oh, good.
He's gonna get an email. You know that.
He's gonna do that.
6:30.
So see the notes, yeah.
Oh, it's an email?
It will email them, yeah.
Okay, oh, here it is. Oh, we got it. Great.
55% is correct. It's nervous. So, these are all the ones that I really didn't think of.
Okay.
So we have this 15. We're at 4. Not been involved.
Well, then, I'd like to call today's meeting, September 13th, of the special open night.
Yeah, because it's recording now from those.
As a reminder, we don't turn on our mics. I'd like to propose this meeting, this is September 13th, of the special committee on the environment and resiliency to order, please. I'm Chairwoman Anderbois, and can the clerks please take the roll?
Chairperson in the room,
Thank you.
Vice Chairperson Sanchez,
President.
Councilwoman Anthony is absent, Councilman Espino is absent, Councilor Royas,
Present.
3 present, 2 absent, you have a quorum.
Awesome, thank you so much. I also want to acknowledge that we are joined today by Director of Sustainability Priscilla De La Cruz, as well as Deputy Director Kevin Frost. We also have the Assistant City Solicitor or Senior Assistant, Ed Tisha. And I'm excited, we're also joined today by our intern from Brown University, Logan, who I'm really excited is here with us today. And so, clerks, would you mind please reading item number 1 into the record?
An ordinance amending chapter 5, buildings and structural appearances of the Code of Ordinance to add Article X, building energy reporting program.
Thank you so much. We are still working on the final, where there's going to be a substitution A of this bill for other counselors, and we're not quite finished. So I'd like to entertain a motion to continue this agenda item to our next meeting.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? Awesome, thank you so much. The motion carries, and I will make sure that you get a copy of that today before the meeting, so there's no surprises, as well as the awesome. Clerks, would you please read sorry, item number 2.
Presentation by Block Power. Presentation will be given by Craig Altimos.
Awesome, thank you so much. I'm so excited that we're joined today by Craig from Block Power. For counselors, you may remember that at our public hearing for the Bureau, the Building and Reporting Ordinance, several people brought up that they'd love us to look more into Block Power, and what good luck that we were already talking to Craig. And so I'm really glad that he's here with us today, and he has a presentation he's going to share. And since he's on Zoom, maybe we should hold our questions to the end, so it's not like a back and forth, but if something is urgent, we could always like to do a little code if you don't mind. Claire's going to bring up your presentation, and then you should be able to unmute Craig and introduce yourself and share. We're really glad you're here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Anderbaugh, and counselors, and Kevin, and the rest of the staff over there. It's great to be with you all. I really appreciate the time this afternoon, or this evening, rather. I am not seeing my presentation yet. Are you all seeing it? Or is that
No,
still
she's
being pulled up?
bringing it up. Do you have
Okay, great.
PowerPoint, Claire?
I just don't know where I'm going.
I think you have to stop share. Here, I can, I'll help 1 second.
Yes, so I'll continue to introduce myself. My name, again, is Craig Altimos. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Block Power, which is a Black-owned climate technology company focusing on making buildings smarter, greener, and healthier through building electrification. And yeah, again, very, very excited to be speaking with y'all today. Here we go.
Oh, we can't see. But that's okay.
All right.
Craig, can you see your presentation now?
I can, yes.
Awesome.
So yeah, if you want to go to the second slide, Claire. Or is that something I can do here?
We are on it. Here it comes. I think we just hit the arrow. There we go. Do you see it change, Craig?
I'm sorry.
We're on the agenda slide. Can you see that?
Okay, great. I can't quite see that has changed, but it's just, I see just a very bright white screen, which makes sense for that slide. So
Okay.
let me actually pull it up just so I'm looking at the same thing here in my end. But yeah, so again, just was hoping to give a brief overview about Block Power, talk about what we can offer building owners, then what we can offer municipalities, particularly Providence, talk about some collaboration opportunities and next steps. So Block Power, again, we are a Black-owned clean tech company founded in 2014, focused on greening and modernizing residential and small commercial buildings, particularly multifamily buildings is really a specialty of ours. We develop, implement, finance energy efficiency and clean energy projects for building owners, again, particularly in low and moderate income urban areas. This is our sampling of some of the partners that we've had the fortune to work with and some of our investors. Next slide, please. Has
On the slide, this is about Block Power, and then on the right side is the black.
Oh, sorry,
side is
I
the right
thought I
side.
covered that one already. I advanced my own slide, so let's go to the next one. Sorry. But
Okay,
those are
here's
some
a
of our
picture of the
partners.
fellow. Okay.
Yes, so this is our CEO and founder, Danelle Baird. Danelle grew up in a one-bedroom apartment in New York City with no heat. And the way his family warmed their apartment during the winter was by opening the oven at night and turning on the oven, and opening the oven door to have that warm their apartment, and open a kitchen window, or rather the kitchen window, so that carbon monoxide poisoning didn't kill them all while they slept. But just growing up in that environment, Danelle really came to intimately understand issues of energy justice and energy equity, and really committed himself to addressing those issues so that people like him growing up in neighborhoods like his would not, suffer similar fates moving forward. And then has also, became a big advocate about climate change, having two small children and just really understanding the science of the climate crisis. And so, both of those missions, really inform the work that we do of addressing equity, addressing energy burden, addressing climate change. And Danelle also notably, spent a lot of time as a community organizer before going to business school and becoming a CEO. And so we also really bring a community organizing mindset and framework to the work, which I also personally have a background in. Next slide, please. So what we offer building owners, is the next section, if you want to jump to the next slide. So, building electrification can be a complex, I think, to the next slide, please. Claire, thank you. Building electrification can be a fairly complicated process. You can have to engage with a whole bunch of different entities, from the construction firm. You have to figure out the planning and engineering, talking to the government and utilities to get permits and incentives, purchasing the equipment, particularly if you're looking to do multiple projects, from induction ranges to, air source heat pumps to EV charging. There can be a lot of different entities you have to engage with, and then getting the financing. Oh, it looks like actually I can control. Here we go. Sorry, distracted by the technology here. This is great. There's a bunch of different stakeholders that one might have to engage as a building owner, and Block Power seeks to simplify that process by being, oh, I guess I can't actually advance it, but yeah, next slide, please. By being the one-stop shop that to interface with the building owner, and to be the one to directly engage with all of these different stakeholders, to take care of everything from the beginning of the process, really until for generally how we do this until 15 years into the project, when the air source heat pump that we like to lease that lease sunsets. If you want to advance to the next slide. So Block Power actually structured, we bring a lot of project financing to the table. We've raised tens of millions of dollars in private capital that we can use to deploy on multifamily and commercial projects. And we actually have a fairly unique lending model where we structure it as a lease rather than as a traditional loan. So the lease is centered around heat pump, air source heat pump equipment traditionally, but we can add all kinds of other stuff into that, as I will go over. But a couple of advantages of the way that we structure it. One is that we don't require a lien on the property. So if someone misses a monthly payment or multiple monthly payments, there's no risk that we're going to claim the property as ours as collateral and seize it from underneath them. They will, from our purposes, will always be, remain the owner of that property. There's no threat to that. We also are able to include a lot of deferred maintenance issues into our financing, which I'll detail a little bit more coming up. And then additionally, we are able to have a more inclusive look at credit scores. So when we're qualifying lenders, or qualifying leases, we do look at people's credit scores, but we have a much more inclusive process. We don't just look at the number, we look behind the number to really look at folks' ability to pay. And so we are, again, more likely to qualify customers who others will turn away. Next slide, please. So the scope of what we're able to include in our financing and to include in our project management is, again, everything from air source and ground source heat pumps, heat pump hot water, home appliances, particularly induction ranges and electric dryers to replace gas-powered dryers and gas-powered stoves and ovens, respectively. LED lighting, installation, air sealing, again, the project planning, and then again, as I alluded to, the remediation. So if there's lead, mold, asbestos, knob tube wiring, a leaky roof that would prohibit someone from moving forward with an electrification project, we can address those issues for no money up front and build that into the term of the 15-year lease so that they get to finance that gradually over the long period of time rather than having to pay for that upfront before they can move forward on an electrification project. And battery storage, solar, monitoring control systems. All of our heat pumps are connected to the internet, which allows for remote control. If you go on vacation, you can adjust the settings to your equipment, and in the longer term would allow folks to participate in things like virtual power plants and actually earn money by cycling their equipment on and off as we embrace more of that smart grid technology. Next slide, please. So that's what we offer individual building owners. And I should say that our offerings are modular, so we can do the project management and provide financing to a project. But if you have contractors lined up ready to go but you don't have the money, we can also just provide financing as a standalone offering. Since we lease the equipment, we do want to make sure that we think that the system is appropriately sized for the property and that it is a high quality system that will last the length of the lease. So we do quality control over the designs, but we are happy to have people bring us projects that are basically ready to go minus the capital and step in to help provide that gap financing. On the municipal side, we offer municipalities a number of services as well, which we can go to the next slide and I can walk through. And if you want to click the first, this is one of those. Yeah, thank you, Claire. So we have a software program to reduce the time and cost of implementation. And we actually have a demo that I'd love, Claire, if you could get ready to pull up the YouTube video in a moment for that, that would be great. We have, again, financing, which I've already articulated. That's something that in partnership with municipalities, we are able to, and utilities and others, we are able to offer at a broad scale to folks. In order to, again, make more projects possible. We can do program design and management, really focused on Justice 40 residents to achieve building electrification goals with an equity lens. And finally, we also work on workforce development and job placement to make sure that there's a big shortage in skilled tradespeople able to do building electrification work. And there's also a large population of justice folks in our communities who've been really excluded from good paying jobs and career paths like skilled trades positions provide. And so we're looking to help connect and bridge those gaps and bring that population into the workforce where there's really a needed shortage of workers. Next slide. Or Claire, if you want to pull up the video now too, that either way can work. Yeah. So actually, let's do 2 more slides and then the video, Claire, if that works for you. So yeah, we really try to meet communities where they're at. And so with some communities, we've worked with them where they're really at the discovery phase and they know they want to move forward in building electrification, but don't really know what's possible for their community. And so we're able to give them the bird's eye view of this is what your building stock looks like. We have a digital twin of basically every building in the country in this software program that we'll show you a video about. Others, we've worked with who've been a little bit further along. They have a climate goal for their buildings, but don't really know how to move the program forward. So, helping them think through the design of different programs. And then finally, we are also able to work with communities that are even further along that have programs that they're ready to deploy. In some cases, we then work with them as an implementation partner and again, help them manage the program in partnership, using our software to help them drive outreach to their building owners and sign them up for electrification projects. So next slide. Oh, sorry, back one. Yep. Yeah, so again, basically, we start with this. We have a partnership with one of the DOE energy labs that gives us the baseline of our data. And then we've layered onto that a number of private data sets we've purchased. We can also then layer on particular data that if the city has that we don't already have access to, that we usually at this point have most of that data already in-house. And then we stand up, again, a data visualization and mapping tool where you can see what your community looks like, and then allow us to filter around a variety of insights, including some proprietary measures that we've created, including rankings around buildings' energy efficiency improvement potential and their heat pump readiness potential, to identify buildings that are good candidates for electrification. We overlay that with environmental justice criteria, with income criteria, but as well as things like the age of the building, the size of the building, the heating fuel source of the building, and use that to create tailored lists of buildings that are good candidates that can be used then to drive outreach to either by ourselves or by the city or by another partner company or organization. And then we do have a parallel tool called our Instant Building Report, which is a customer-facing tool. So block maps, which I've been describing, is more on the back end. The Instant Building Report is more on the front end that customers can approach, enter their address, provide some base level information about it, and get an initial assessment of what an electrification project would look like for them, and get connected to one of our customer representatives to talk to them about what electrifying their building would look like. So I think, Claire, if you're up for pulling up that YouTube video that I emailed you a little while ago at this point, that would be terrific. I apologize. The video does say Massachusetts, so folks pretend it says Rhode Island. So we are already active in your neighbor to the north there.
Engineering, analysis, financing, and thank you for taking the time to learn more about how Block
the video
Power
does say
can make
Massachusetts,
meeting
so folks
decarbonization
pretend it
goals in
says,
Massachusetts
Rhode Island.
that much
So we
easier.
are already
Block
active
Maps is a toolkit that
in your
provides
neighbor to the north
turnkey
there.
wraparound
Engineering,
services that include upfront program design, customer identification, engineering, analysis, financing, and project implementation. We already have data on more than 1.8 Block Maps is a toolkit that provides turnkey wraparound services, design and customize program design, customer identification, engineering, analysis, financing, and project implementation. We already have data on more than 1.8 Block Maps is a toolkit that provides turnkey wraparound services, help you design and customize.
We can skip that if needed.
Yeah, was there supposed to be audio with it playing, but there was no audio?
That's fascinating because I was hearing the same audio looping over itself, and my words were also looping as that was going.
Oh, weird.
So that was, I was laughing because it was very chaotic for me because the video started multiple times.
And we heard like no sound.
Yeah, sorry. That's why I was laughing. I was like, they hear this too?
Maybe
well,
tell the link to all the committee members afterward, and we can keep going through the.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So again, I mean, I think if we want to distribute that link, that's great. And the short version of the video was just going to give you some demonstrations of how we're able to narrow the building stock and look at the particular building characteristics. And again, it allows you to take the bird's eye view, look at the city as a whole. I think if we want to distribute that link, that's great. And the short version of the video was just going to give you some demonstrations. I'm hearing myself how we're able to narrow the building stock and look at the particular building characteristics. No, this is and again, it allows you to take the bird's eye view, look at the city as a whole. What I'm hearing. I think if we want to distribute that link, that's great. And the short version of the video was just going to give you some demonstrations. I'm hearing myself how we're able to narrow the building stock. I can hear you all, but I'm hearing myself. Loop over myself. I'm hearing like multiple versions of my voice repeating, so it's going to be a little bit distracting. Short version of the video is just going to give you some.
I mean, it's just.
I'm hearing myself talking. It's narrow. There's building stock. I can hear you all, but it's a little bit hard for me to hear you loop over myself. I'm hearing like multiple versions of my voice repeating, so it's going to be a little bit distracting. Short version of the video is just going to give you some.
I mean, it's just.
I'm hearing myself talking. It's narrow.
Yeah, so sorry, there was a mic
I
that's
can hear you all, but it's a little bit hard for me to hear you loop over myself. I'm hearing like multiple it's going to be a little bit distracting. I can't really hear you all myself, but I'm happy to talk over myself. I can hear you all, but it's a little bit hard for me to hear you loop over myself. I'm hearing like it's going to be a little bit distracting. I can't really hear you all myself, but I'm happy to talk over myself. I can hear you all, but it's a little bit hard for me to hear you loop over myself. If you want me to continue, then let's advance the next slide, and I'll just. Great. Okay, so I can't really hear you all myself, but I'm happy to talk. This is so. Actually, let me go back one slide. It's a little bit hard for me to hear you. If you want me to continue, this is an example of some of the partnerships we've had with communities, and able to really have a very wide, very varied scope. Contracts. So actually, let me go back, which ranges from the city of Kansas. If you want me to continue, this is an example of some of the partnerships we've had with communities, and able to really have a very wide. But should I keep? Give me a thumbs up if I should keep talking. Contracts. So actually, let me go back, which ranges from the city of Kansas. Thank you. So this is a. If you want me to continue, again, this is an sampling of some of the projects you all are doing, and able to really have a very from the city of Cambridge. Should I keep? Give me a thumbs up if I should have the software and just 10 projects. So this is we're contracted to electrify every building in the city by 2026. Sampling of some of the Colorado buildings, able to really have a very particular Cambridge. Should I keep? Give me a thumbs up if I should have the measuring house impacts on the residents. And this is we're contracted to our workforce program. Sampling of some of the Colorado 90+% clear color, 25% house impacts on the residents, and train them in building application skills, getting them OSHA certification, our workforce program, and giving them also theoretical skills on the have traditional 90+% clear color, 25% understanding how to house manners, and train them in partnership skills, OSHA certification, ability to actually start as a project, collaboration and marriage skills, have 90+% clear color, 25% understanding how to next slide, house manners, let's go back one more. So again, we have a history of community organizing. Sorry, I'm just laughing. This is now a chorus of voices that are indistinguishable with just me talking about but yeah, go back one more. History of community organizing as part of our DNA, and we have a history of community advisory organizing, working communities. Sorry, I'm just laughing. We have this now we can both listen to for ourselves and understand the community better, but also help to spread the word among their neighbors. But yeah, go back one more. History and community organizing, helps for DNA and some of the history of the projects or projects to get an understanding of how these projects work. So we have, I guess, better familiarity with technologies so they can talk to us ourselves, understand these things community better, are not as well known. So climate solutions, solar panels, history and organizing, helps for something that helps us complete projects under budget and better for the technologies so they can talk to us ourselves, communities are not as well known. So climate solutions, solar panels. So again, a reference to the Coastal Development Program. We are partnering with somebody that helped us complete projects. We're partnering with the Boston Office of Returning Citizens, community college support, nonprofit communities on a program that specifically targets 30 returning citizens. Again, a reference to the Coastal Development Program. We are members of training as well, help us get $20 an hour. We're partnering with the Boston Office and then have them be placed on the contract here for another 4 weeks. 4 weeks of training on a program on self-learning targets 30 returning citizens contract. We'll see the benefits, train higher than willing to get $10 an hour. And we'll be launching the first cohort in Boston, placed on the contract here for another 4 weeks. Jersey with these 12 weeks on a program as well as we'll see the benefits, train higher than willing to get $10 an hour. And we'll be launching slides first, and I think that includes my presentation. Jersey, and yeah, I would welcome questions. It may be hard for me to hear them over the endless of myself talking. But if we can address that technologically, I'd be happy to take questions, or if we want to launch slide questions, I think that includes my presentation. I'm happy to do that as well. Oh, and it just ended. Great. I can hear again. But you all are muted, so I cannot hear you.
Can you hear us now, Craig?
I can, yes.
Oh, terrific. And can you only hear one of yourself?
I don't even hear myself when I'm not talking. It's beautiful.
This is wonderful. I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry for whatever that was, but
it was a very fascinating experience. So you know, and obviously a little bit amusing to me. So apologies for the laughter, but yeah, I'm glad to be able to hear you all again.
It makes you feel better. We can only hear one of you the whole time. So it was totally clear on our end. I don't know what's happening for you. I'm so sorry.
All good.
But thank you for that really awesome presentation. And I will send around the link to the YouTube video to the other counselors so they can see it, as well as to the Director of Sustainability who's here with us today, and the Deputy Director of Sustainability. I just wanted to open up and see if any of the members of the committee have any questions for Craig. I'll start with a question while they think about their questions. I see their intense concentration faces. For the partnerships that you were talking about with municipalities, you mentioned Cambridge, Denver, New York City. What does, and if you, apologies, I was working on the slides at some point, so apologies if you covered some of this, but how do you structure those partnerships? Like, how do you create those partnerships, and what does it look like from the municipalities end? Like, what do you, how have those begun? How is the relationship with the mayor? Is the relationship with the council? Like, how do you create those partnerships?
Yeah, it's a great question, Counselor. Thank you for that. And I will say it has been somewhat ad hoc based upon the particular needs and processes of the committee, or the community rather. So sometimes we certainly have worked through the city councils. Other times we've worked through the mayor's office or the Office of Sustainability directly. And, you know, obviously we always honor all the procurement limits. Sometimes we are able to do, you know, contracts that do not trigger a competitive RFP, and we're able to move more quickly. Other times the scope of the project that folks are interested in, you know, is larger than we can contract with without going through a public RFP. And so then a competitive RFP. And so then we do, you know, move through that competitive process and submit our bid along with any other vendors who are interested, and have won, you know, a good number of those over the past couple of years. But yeah, again, we can offer, something as simple as just the software. And there are some communities that like our data visualization and mapping software and just want to use that. Some communities start with the software as a first part of the relationship, and then, deepen the relationship by then contracting with us to do additional services, such as creating a pilot program for them or doing a larger scale program. And again, we can start at the larger scale, or we can start with a pilot and, prove the results and then scale up to a larger scale program. And again, we can just offer, financing. We can offer financing and project management to buildings. We can certainly offer our outreach services and our marketing as a service to the community, leveraging the Block Maps data to really have, targeted and informed outreach to community members. And again, leveraging the community advisory board as well as a key component of doing that more social marketing. So yeah, again, it's really based upon where the community is at, what folks are looking for, and where we think we can best work together.
Awesome, that's great. Did you have a question, Council?
Yes, thank you. Greg, thank you so much for the presentation. And my just one simple question. Can you just explain a little bit more of like the workforce development program that you've been working on, and kind of just give us a little more details on that and what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think a key part of one thing to note about our workforce development programs is that they are intentionally not cheap programs. We are really looking to work with justice populations and people who have been really kind of locked out of the traditional, workforce and be able to benefit from good paying jobs. And so we think it's really important that we pay people a living wage while they're being trained, so that they have the ability to go through those trainings. So again, the way we like to structure it is that it's a 12-week training, and we pay people $20 an hour while they're being trained, which, is in most places enough to live off of during the course of the training. And again, we train them on three key things. One is career readiness. And so making sure that they, understand things, even like why you need to show up on time to a job, and why it's important to show up on time every day, and how to present yourself, how to conduct yourself on the job site, how to write a resume, how to participate in interviews, all of that stuff that some people just never really got the benefit to learn. And then we train them on workplace safety, and they graduate with an OSHA certification that says that they are qualified to work on construction sites and know what they're doing and know how to keep themselves safe and prevent themselves from harming themselves or others during any construction work. And then we further teach them some baseline construction skills. And I think one thing to note is that we're not looking to graduate people as electricians or plumbers at the end of this 12-week program. That would be way too ambitious a goal. Really, the idea is to have them graduate so that they can be hired for a position like laborer, right, or electrician's assistant, like someone who is gets their foot in the door, and over the next couple of years can prove themselves by working hard, learn more about the job, and then enter a formal apprenticeship program, or otherwise just work their way up through the ranks of the contractor that they're employed with. But then, at the end of the 12-week planning program, we then try to place folks in with a contractor doing related energy efficiency or electrification work, oftentimes on projects that we are connected to in one way or another, where we're directly running those projects or contracting them. But sometimes it's also just with other contractors where we are not all touching the project, but they are just excited to have folks in the pipeline to bring up and to have some initially free labor. The kind of the pitch to the contractors is that they're going to get 4 weeks where we're going to pay someone as part of the program to show up to their job sites and contribute to their company's work. And so during those 4 weeks, again, the program is paying for the participants to learn as they're doing the work on the job. And the hope is that by the end of that 16-week period of 12 weeks of classroom learning, and that classroom learning does include getting their hands dirty and drilling into walls, or at least temporary walls to learn how to do that construction work. and then 4 weeks of on-the-job learning that the company will see value in keeping that person around to start paying their wages at that point. I don't know if that was too long or if that answered your question, Counselor, but.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that information.
Okay, if I have some,
Counselor Boyd had yeah, sorry.
Chair, thank you. Craig, just to continue the workforce conversation. After those, I think you said 16 weeks, you have data on how many of these companies have kept these trainees or employees at that point?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I can send you all the 1-year impact report from our first year in the New York City program. And I can even try to pull it up right now. I guess I can't share my screen on that. But you know, the Boston program, as I mentioned, you know, we are launching next year, so we don't have data from Boston yet. But let me see if I can just pull up the New York City program. I don't have that info top of mind, but so, you know, from the first year of the the Civilian Climate Corps, as we call it in New York City.
No worries if you don't have the data from, it was just a question.
So, yeah, no, it's a good question. It's an important question.
Yeah.
So, you know, the first year of the program, we trained 1,700 people, 400 of them had job placements. So we were not at that scale, we were not able to place all of them in jobs, unfortunately. Like there's, you know, that's a pretty big scale of starting off at 1,700 people a year for the first year of the program. Yeah, you know, as I mentioned, in Boston, we're looking to start with 30 people the first year, and we are looking for a 100% job placement rate with those folks on the much smaller scale. And you know, hopefully over time, we can scale that program up to become more at the large scale that New York City is at. But yeah, that's where we're at there.
The other question I had, Craig, and this is probably a little maybe odd of a question, but for the founding of the Block Power, what was that one partnership that kind of made everything blossom after that? Like what started this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I should say I was not there at the beginning. But in terms of what started this, again, I would say that our founder actually, you know, he wound up being pretty involved in both the Obama election campaigns and worked for the DOE. And there's a bunch of stimulus money after the 2008 financial crash, where they were really hoping to do something similar to Block Power, where they were, you know, had a whole bunch of federal money to go and you know, bring a lot of energy efficiency work to, you know, traditionally marginalized communities. And there just wasn't a private sector partner ready to pick up that money and run with it after the funding ran out from the federal government. And so Donnell really was like, okay, well, someone needs to figure this out on the private sector side of who's going to be doing this work. And so that really motivated him to go to business school and figure this out. In terms of, you know, what was the key partnership that got us going in Brooklyn? I mean, you know, we did have a contract with the city of New York City that, you know, where we again came in under budget and over delivered the results that we were expecting to around energy efficiency projects in the city. I know that we did have a lot of close partnerships with faith communities. I think was certainly a key part of our success there, where I think we both worked with the congregations as, you know, as buildings, the houses of worship as buildings, but also worked with the congregation members as renters and homeowners and building owners themselves. But yeah, so I guess I would say that was probably the key early partnership.
Thank you.
Director, did you have a question? Yes, a follow-up question, and then I think an additional question that builds on some partnerships question. Well, first, thank you so much. It was really great to learn more about Block Power and just
get a good sense of the services that you offer. And immediately my brain starts thinking about how does this relate to other models? I really appreciated your slide that talked about ESCOs and PACE and what are the services particularly offered for municipalities. But in terms of the workforce question, I guess I'm thinking about for the city, our Department of Economic Development, we have like our specific programs and apprenticeship programs that are offered, and then there are through the unions also apprenticeship models like our successful building or their successful building futures program. So I'm thinking about in creating a strategy, is it that you would come in and help us sort of figure out how to expand what's working or what are the gaps, or I'm just sort of thinking how what you offer would complement what we're doing well and what we want to do more of.
Yeah, I mean, so again, historically, we come in as a program administrator and run a particular program. I think we would be very happy to talk about, starting off with a consulting contract to, come in and kind of look at the systems you currently have and as you said, identify gaps and propose solutions that could involve us or could involve, the city changing how they work or hiring a different vendor to address it. But again, I think without having a clearer picture of what all you currently do, it would be hard for me to exactly, propose how we could nest within the different programs.
But you answered it, thank you. I just wanted to know like if that would be that opportunity to like tailor it with us based on what we have and what we're trying to achieve. So it sounds like, yes, that would be part of the assessing and sort of framing of a contract with Block Power.
Absolutely.
Is that, okay, great. And then the other question is in terms of community engagement and partnerships, similar to the workforce question, I'm just wondering in terms of, do you already have like networks established in Rhode Island and in Providence in particular, or would that be something that you would rely on the city to sort of provide and the city council and then it would be more of like you bring the capacity and leverage the resources we have for working with that existing network?
Great question. I would say we don't have a robust set of relationships in Rhode Island. We certainly have started having some conversations with various stakeholders. But I think, it would be a combination of us absolutely, leveraging the existing relationships that the city has. And again, looking to pursue our own relationships separate from the city. I think there are some folks who at times can be, wary of the government for various reasons. And so I think, certainly starting off with a list of stakeholders the city thinks are strategic and important to engage, but also, using our own outreach techniques and approaches to identify other community leaders that we want to work with and engage.
And one more question, I promise, but based on something you said, do you already have an existing workforce or staff members dedicated to Rhode Island and Providence?
No,
Or would that
not
be part of
personally.
the building? Okay.
Kind of a slightly more different track. Craig, this is Sue again. So Director De La Cruz and I are both on the State's Energy Efficiency Council that provides oversight on the state's energy efficiency programs. And one of the kind of constant questions that comes up is like, are there ways to do this? Not to like this terrible pun that's unintended, but here comes out my mouth, like more efficiently. So that we're like, so instead of like house by house or apartment by apartment, like you're doing entire blocks at a time. And especially with the scale and speed with which we need to be like electrifying and decarbonizing, I'm wondering like you're probably familiar with like the solarized model where it's like neighborhoods at a time, or there's like a scale to it. Is that the kind of thinking that Block Power is doing as well? And like, how do we work that in? And particularly for, and then I promise we'll stop talking, like, we're seeing in the efficiency programs in the way that I'm sure you're seeing with electrifying and that justice communities, low income communities, renters have had much less access to the energy efficiency programs. And I've worked in energy efficiency for like 4 years than I'm going to say that loud. And every year, like for like 20 years, we were, or even before that, well, before I got into it, it's like, oh, well, it's just a hard market. It's like, okay, well, we've known that for like, my entire lifetime at this point. So like, what are we going to do about it? And it seems like you guys come from a place in your origin stories of a place that's like directly going after that. And so anyway, I'm just wondering like, how can we like get into those communities at scale? Like what's been your experience or model or, yeah, I'll stop talking. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I understand the question, Counselor. And yeah, I mean, as you said, it is a hard market. Like, I don't want to, suggest that we have a silver bullet where we can just come in and 3 days later, all of the low income multifamily buildings in the city will be electrified. But yeah, but we entered the space because it is hard space that we felt like no one else was really jumping into and really trying to figure out and lead on. And so, yeah, in terms of your question, the block maps software, I think, is one of the ways we look to identify, again, which neighborhoods of the city you're saying have the right congregation, right aggregation of buildings that are good candidates for this, with the right populations, the justice populations that we want to be targeting. And then, yes, we can absolutely do, a solarized type, block approach. I think, it's a little bit different than the traditional solarized program where you're, approaching homeowners, right? When we're talking about multifamily buildings, like those, it's not as easy as just persuading a family that they want to get solar. It is more of, having to talk to, again, multifamily building owners. Sometimes you're talking to condo associations, which has, a lot of complications involved, or you're talking to, absentee landlords. So again, it's not, I think you shouldn't expect the same success rate as a traditional solarized model in these communities, but yes, we absolutely can do that type of targeted focused approach and really, again, use kind of, community social marketing and leverage that community organizing mindset to get as many folks as possible, in target areas on board with this program and with these goals and signing up to have their buildings electrified.
Awesome, thank you. Dr. Royce, do you have a question? Thank you, Elaine.
I'm just thinking here, processing kind of what you're saying. How do you convince a landlord of a multi-unit home to electrify their development? Like, what has that been like? Like, what strategies have been used, and like, how do you just kind of pretty much, because I think I'm just gonna put this out there. When I was campaigning for office, I knocked on folks' doors, and they all thought I was like from a solar company, and so there's this distrust and like that's out there, and is it just that you stand, like, is it representatives from Black Power just stand on what they offer, like the programming and services are so compelling that it's hard to turn down what you would be offering to them as far as getting those landlords to buy in? So I say a lot. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to ask.
No, those are great questions. And the second part of your question, that is why we really like to have formal partnerships with municipal governments whenever we do work in a community, because there are these predatory third-party energy suppliers that will come in and really try to take advantage of people who are trying to lower their energy bills or sign up for solar and just aren't lawyers, and so don't really read the fine print and don't understand the escalating costs that are built into some of these predatory contracts. And so again, when we have a partnership with the municipality, we're able to say, this is the municipality has vetted us and is giving their seal of approval, and we put out joint marketing that has both our company's logo and the seal of the city as we're advertising to residents to say, this is a city vetted company and part of a city program. In terms of how do we persuade multifamily building owners? Again, I don't want to say this is easy work and that there's a single silver bullet. I wish it was that we had such a persuasive offering that every landlord we talk to signs on the dotted line the same day we meet them. But I would say there are generally like three types of building owners that we have had more success with. One is just, enlightened building owners, which, I'd say is not a huge percentage of folks, but, people who, really care about their tenants and, want to give them better indoor air quality, better comfort, and are concerned about climate change and recognize that, our society is on the brink of ecological collapse, which will have profound implications for, society and our civilization, and want to do something meaningful with the resources before them, including the buildings that they own. A second class of folks are, owners who are themselves occupants of the buildings that they own, where again, which I think has some overlap sometimes with those enlightened landlords, but where they're more likely to, well, that they themselves will then benefit from these enhancements, and they're more likely to know their neighbors, their tenants, because they are their neighbors, and they see them as real people and are more likely to, just want them to have the good things. And again, I think part of this is that there are advantages in terms of the climate impact, but again, it's healthier for the residents. We talk about the comfort benefits that, a lot of buildings right now, particularly in the Northeast, don't have air conditioning because air conditioning was really a luxury good. And as the climate continues to warm, air conditioning is quickly becoming more of a human right, basically, of a necessity, particularly for elderly folks and other vulnerable populations. It's just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter, and it can be really unsafe for folks in heat waves if they don't have cooling in their buildings. And so helping people understand that you don't have to install a totally separate cooling system. You can actually have a single system that provides both heating and cooling in a way that is more efficient than either your old heating system or your old cooling system would be or is. And then the third category is, folks who are at end of life for their current HVAC system and are ready to replace it. And again, I think part of the persuasion campaign there is to look at the growing set of both state and federal regulations around climate change, around pollution emissions target and reduction targets and requirements, and to say that to communicate clearly to these building owners that it's a matter of when, not if, they're going to have to get oil and gas out of their buildings, and that it's much smarter and wiser and cost efficient for them to do that at the time that they would normally replace their HVAC system. So rather than signing up, to have a new 15-year, 20-year, boiler or furnace they want to set up, and then 10 years later find out that, oh, they have to switch over to an electric system because the government is telling them that they're no longer going to allow oil to be burned in buildings in the city. Like there's something that New York City building owners are going through right now where the government is phasing out different types of heating oil in buildings, and eventually it's going to be adding gas to that list of fuels that are just not going to be allowed to be burned in buildings anymore. And I think for some folks that seems like a very far away and distant reality, but I think as we see more and more heat waves and more droughts and floods and superstorms, the public pressure for governments to show that they're taking climate change seriously is going to be, increasing exponentially. And so I think we will see increasing measures by governments to take climate change seriously, which means getting oil and gas out of our buildings. And again, I think it's much better for building owners to replace that at the time it makes sense they're going to replace than to have to do an out of cycle replacement. So that's part of the education of building owners, letting them know it's going to be cheaper and more efficient to do it, when it's time to replace their boiler or their furnace than being told to do it later when it's not that time. So again, not a silver bullet, but I would also say, again, particularly oil systems and baseboard electric systems are very inefficient systems. So also certainly targeting different types of existing heating systems that are just, again, really inefficient, where there's the cost savings. I think, just to be transparent, if you have natural gas currently for heating, unless it's a very inefficient building, that may not be actually a cost-effective upgrade in the short term. We do expect natural gas prices to continue to rise much more aggressively in the long term than electricity prices, as solar and wind deepen the penetration of the electricity grid. Those are going to be very stable prices because the price of the wind and the sun don't increase the same way that the price liquid fuels or gas fuels like oil and gas do and will. But again, it's just a much clearer proposition in the short term for oil and electric baseboard heating to replace those types.
Thank you, Craig. And I'm new to the world of sustainability, but
Sure.
so I'm learning more and more about this. How do you identify, this might be a real elementary question, so I apologize, but how do you identify which homes are sort of trying to move away from natural gas? Like is it just marketing? Is it just door to door? And yeah, so I guess, yeah, what does that entail, like that outreach?
Yes. So again, I think this part of your question would be answered by the YouTube video in terms of like the software is one of the ways we identify buildings that are, from our perspective, ideal candidates for electrification. And again, that looks at everything from the age of the building, the size of the building, the existing heating fuel type that they use. We can also look at permitting data to see how recently they've made different upgrades or have installed new equipment. That's all data that's useful for us to identify good candidate building types. And then in terms of how the marketing works, we honestly generally focus much more on multifamily than single family, which again is, I think, a little bit different than your family approach. But we certainly have and can also target single family homeowners. I think like for natural gas particularly, I think that is looking for more of those climate concerned folks, and so we are able to look at we can target people of who's a member of the Sierra Club and has natural gas, or who is who drives a Tesla and has natural gas, as people who might want to be looking to make those types of upgrades away from gas particularly. Again, I think for oil, for baseboard electric, there's less of that price sensitivity, where that can be a real financial smart move for folks in the short term. And so we don't need to be thinking about who wants to do this for non-monetary reasons, but who wants to, who is concerned about climate change, maybe concerned about indoor air quality, and is concerned about, really making sure that the prices don't rise for them, if that makes sense.
Right, just one more question, I promise. So, are you saying your software has like, for example, I'm looking at the slide here, the proprietary shared data. So the block maps software can identify those multi-unit homes and single-family homes that have a natural gas system. Is that what? And then my question is, oh my gosh, I lower the volume up here. But how? I don't know if you might be able to answer this, but how is your software able to capture that? Like, because I don't know, like, does our city have that information?
You would have it.
Was that?
Public Utilities Commission would have it. I don't know where Block Tower is getting the information from, but I'll let Craig answer that. But
Yeah,
it is something
please.
that like we see. Yeah, or energy, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So the national data sets that we have include things like again, public records from the assessor's office, from permitting offices. So we're able to pull in that data, and then again, we also have purchased some private data sets that I'm not really at liberty to share. But yes, so we do have data on which buildings have natural gas versus oil, versus electric heating. And the other thing about our soft, I should say that the block maps does not come with data included around, who is a Sierra Club member and who drives a Tesla. That's like separate market research that our marketing team would do for a relevant market, if that's the demographic we want to go after. Sorry, I just lost part of what I was going to say there. Yeah, I think I lost the thread I was going to go back to. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I do that often. My brain's a pancake.
It's dinner time. Yeah, I haven't seen it before. I'm hungry. I can't think anymore. Speaking of pancakes, yeah, please. So, Craig, I just want to make sure that I understand like the turnkey approach well. So if the city were to form a partnership, or build a program with Block Power, then Block Power would be not only helping us like design the program, but in terms of implementation, a building owner or multi-family owner would call you to go through the turnkey approaches, and you would be able to say like, based on like the city, state incentives, and here's the gap and how so you would be that sort of handholder for that, is that right?
Yes, Director, and let me actually, I did think of my other thoughts, so I'll just throw that out there that before answering your question, so the other piece I was going to say is that, our software does have an AI interface, or we do have predictive modeling and machine learning. And so if there are gaps in our data, we can use predictive modeling to guess basically. And we can also, again, it has machine learning. And so if as we do projects in the community, and we absorb the data from those projects, that helps inform other buildings of similar types in the community to give us more accurate data for them, particularly around as one of the things we do provide estimates on. It's getting to the director's point is the cost of doing a project, right? And so if we do a project in a 6-unit building in East Providence that was built in 1943, and then we have another 6-unit building in East Providence built in 1945, we can probably assume that a lot of the same learnings are going to be applicable to the second building from the first building, and our machine learning will automatically carry those learnings over without any human intervention. But the Director, to your point, so yeah, again, like we've historically offered a pretty modular approach. So we could just do the software mapping for you, and then use that, give that tool for you all to use how you would like to, but help you think through the planning side, but then have you all or others handle the implementation. Or yes, you can certainly also contract with us to do the implementation. And yeah, so we absolutely identify any city, state, federal incentives that are on the table. And then from there, our financing, which is our lease offer that I referenced, can help fill in the gap for folks. So if if a project costs for, let's say, for multifamily building is going to cost $100,000, and we've identified $25,000 in available incentives and subsidies, then for that $75,000 balance, our lease could fill in, so that they pay that out over 15 years rather than having to pay that out up front. And I think the other piece that I didn't mention about our lease is that we do include some baseline operations and maintenance on the units. So over the course of the 15 years, the basic O&M package that we include built into all of our leases is that there's a twice annual visit to the property to tune up the machines, make sure it's working well, to make sure that we're doing that preventative maintenance on the equipment, so that it lasts the full 15 years of the lease. And then if there are emergency visits, there are costs associated with that, but those costs are lower because we have this O&M package built in. And I'm happy to send over some information about some more information about the lease terms if that's of interest to folks.
One more question, I promise, and it's okay if you can't answer this question, but something that I am thinking about, considering acknowledging that you offer a modular approach and we can choose what we need, I am thinking about like the cost of the city. So if we were to come to you and say, we want a budget for programs like these going into the next fiscal year, would you work with us on that, or do you have like a menu of services that you say, like, typically if you want X, Y, and Z, it's going to cost the city this much?
Yes. So again, I think yes is the short version. We would be delighted to have that conversation with you. But yes, again, I think it'd be hard for me to give you a price right now without having a conversation about what components you're looking for, but yes, we can absolutely have that conversation and give you a, a budget for you all to include in the next fiscal year.
Thank you. Also, any other questions from counselors, the department, anyone? Okay, I think we've asked all of our questions, Craig. This was awesome. We are so appreciative of your time and this presentation, and I will send out the YouTube link to the rest of the committee so they can watch that at their leisure some other time. But thank you, and sorry for the technical difficulties. Pretty unusual for these meetings, so I think there's like a Zoom gremlin who didn't want us to find out about block power, but here we are. We've defeated that Zoom gremlin. So thank you so much for the presentation.
Counselors and director and yeah, everyone, I really appreciate the time to speak with you today. Very much hope we can find a way to work together moving forward, and apologies again for my awkward laughing as I was talking over myself there. I thought you were all hearing it too initially.
Thank you for powering through with us, Craig.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that was our main agenda item for today. I don't see any members of the public, but we do have an attendee on Zoom. So if that attendee has a question, please raise your hand. Nope. Okay. I always like to leave it open for public comment, but seeing none. Just a reminder to other members in the committee, we do have a meeting on Monday. Sorry, I'll just be where we'll hear an update from the city's direct Department of Sustainability and the consultant they've been working with around zoning and the climate justice plan, which I'm really excited about. And we will be voting on the Bureau survey. So it's going to be a really exciting time. And we will see you all on Monday at 5:30. Thank you, Claire. Thank you for the participation. Oh, and can I please have a motion to adjourn?
So. Wait for it. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Awesome. Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thanks again.
I really need to go black today.